Today I'm going to be painting this fairly complicated countryside scene with lots of fields and a bit of a background. I'm only going to be using one brush in Procreate and a few tools, so it should be nice and simple. I'm starting off with a simple sketch, and one thing to note here is I don't really try to copy the photo because it's got too many little details that I'm not that interested in. So what I'm really trying to nail is the foreground, the middle, and the background. So I want a bunch of fields. I need the road and the big mountain hill thing at the back. And once I have that, I'm fairly happy, and I'll just add detail in a rough place of where it is, and not worry where everything goes because it doesn't really matter. You won't notice in the end. So one of those tools I use is the color fill in Procreate. I use it quite a lot. It's good for blocking out big shapes and saves you a lot of time filling in things if you use the regular brushes. So I'm using it again here. So freehand color fill is great. It takes a bit of getting used to, but saves a lot of time and effort if you do. So I've blocked in the big land. So the land mass is pretty much just all one. So I blocked it all in green. And make sure it doesn't go too saturated to begin with, because I'm going to put the colors over the top like I'm doing now. So on another layer, roughly where I've put these little sketch lines, I start to insinuate where fields are. And basically what I'm trying to do is just change the color of the greens. Now I'm fairly careful not to go too green. But you can a little bit. So if you use the color fill tool like I do here, once the color fills in, if you go to the color palette and change the color, it can change as it's filling in. So that's quite nice too. So again, I'm not really following the photo reference here, but as you can see, I have kind of the major parts to it. So obviously the orange fields stand out quite a lot. The yellow fields stand out quite a lot. And I've kind of just ignored the rest. So what I'm trying to do is like, okay, what do I ignore and what do I not? Is I look for the big things happening in the painting or the photo, and I make sure I do those, and everything else is not really that important. So you got like two major masses of trees. Now the rest I just make up and I just put them where I want. You've obviously got the road, so I'm putting that in now. And then you get the variations of the fields. Now, not much else will make a massive difference when you zoom out. And this is why I like to put the reference nice and small. So I don't get too bogged down in the details and I don't start trying to copy the reference. If you try and copy the reference, it's going to take you a very long time and it won't actually make that much difference. Nobody would really notice that you've copied it exactly, unless that's what you wanted to do. And I don't really find that enjoyable anyway. So I create the reference really small and put it off to the side. And I just try and nail the big elements. And then it's a lot more fun just putting the little trees where I want. Because if I find that I copy, I'm generally just staring at the reference all the time and barely looking at what I'm doing, which is not enjoyable. So once I get the big shapes in, I stop looking at the reference when I'm working on a part of it. Like, so when I'm putting the trees in, I don't really look at the reference anymore. I just start putting them wherever I want. And as long as you kind of follow the concept of it, you don't have to worry too much. So the concept being, obviously, little trees in the distance and bigger up front. So I'm putting in a bit of the sky there. And another tool I use in Procreate quite a lot is the Gaussian blur. So you can make big hard shapes and use Gaussian blur, and it blurs them out quite nicely, or smooths it out quite nicely. So one thing I like to do when I make fields, any type of field painting, is have some slight variations in the color of the fields in the same shape. It's just quite simple to do. I'm using the technical pen. My main brush is the only brush I use. Then I'll pick the field that I'm already working on. As you can see, I'm having trouble with that one. And then slightly shift the color. Now very small, we're talking like millimeter shifts. And then use the smudge tool to blend it back in. So it's only a really slight shift of color, but it does make quite a bit of difference to making it look the fields look more varied. And you can go further with that and take your time if you want to. This painting took me about 30 minutes, so it's it's more like a sketchy painting. So if you zoom in, there's quite a lot of mistakes and things. But I just like to have fun, and I don't really care that it's messy. As long as it looks okay when it's zoomed out, I don't really mind that if you zoom in, it's a mess. I'm just doing these for fun, and obviously to explain how I do them. So now I'm adding some detail, like to kind of pretend there's like houses or something in the distance. If you look at photos with the big landscapes like this, you'll notice like there's lots of little bit of white dots and things in the distance. They're usually reflections or the sun catching things. So I'm putting in some sheep, and they're so far away, you're gonna make sure they're tiny and they don't stick out too much, and they come in clumps usually. So make sure you have a couple of clumps where they're hanging about together. And really that's about it, so it didn't really take me that long to do, because I'm not really paying attention to the reference other than the major parts. So that's kind of the lesson there, is don't get bogged down in the detail and create the major shapes, and hopefully you'll have a good time. So if you found this useful, subscribe to see the next ones, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.